Hey everyone, welcome to day 2 of the CloudStack Collaboration Conference. We start the day in this track with Boris Stoyanov from Shape Blue, who will talk about Google Summer of Code and Apache CloudStack. Hi, Bobby.
Hi, Yvette, and thank you. Hey, everybody. Thank you for attending this talk. As my goal here is to take you through what happened this year with our participation in Google Summer of Code. To show you our projects, our students, our mentors, and to share with you some results and some takeaways. So let's dive into it. So yeah, a little bit about me. I am a software engineer in specialized in testing. With about 15 years of experience, I've been involved in testing various different products like gaming, in e-commerce, in development tools, and whatever. Now CloudStack, and I have a lot of experience with test automation, with performance load testing, as well as test management and planning. On the personal side, I am married with two beautiful girls, one 4 and one 6 months old. And in my downtime, I am trying to do sports as much as I can. I love to take long walks, listen to audiobooks, meet with friends, and all the normal stuff that we do. So I found my ikigai in Shape Blue and CloudStack in 2016 when I joined, and I had the privilege actually to meet the most of you, which is a great honor to me. And up until now, I haven't been really actively contributing to open source projects, and ever since I started doing so, it came to me and I understood how important are programs like GSoC to projects and organizations like ours. So what is GSoC? It stands for Google Summer of Code. It's an international program for internship, and it is hosted by Google. It awards stipends to students who successfully complete a project, and it's basically offering them to spend a summer of coding and to do something good for organization, and eventually gain some experience and get paid. So it's been available since 2005. Each year, it usually gravitates around 200 organizations participating and 1,300 projects, so quite large. So what it is? I mean, how often have we heard this thing in companies? We can't find people. A lot, right? Well, guess what? It's the same with open source organizations. Unless you have some massive vendor backing the project, you end up with a handful of companies, small companies involved, and a few enthusiasts within the ecosystem, and that's your community. So GSoC is targeted for mainly students, but it is as important for open source communities as much as for students. So what is GSoC? In my experience, I think the main function of GSoC is to be a link between students and open source organizations like CloudStack. So who can participate? Well, at the essence, free open source organizations can participate, are eligible to apply. We all know Apache is under the CloudStack is under the Apache Software Foundation, so our applications go through the hat of this organization. And each year, we as a community crowdsource the list of project ideas that we want to push forward. Right, but let me ask this question: who got something to be fixed in CloudStack? Who has the idea of something to be fixed? Like everyone, right? There's always something to be addressed, to be twitched a little bit so that we can get this client or expand our infrastructure or whatever purpose. So this is your idea. I mean, this is the space and time, and you can actually propose and move this idea as a GSoC project idea for next year, for example. So who can participate? Anyone. I mean, open source organization, but you don't forget the organization is actually you. So if you have the idea, don't be shy about it, and just keep an eye on the mailing list. And usually around January, February, we start crowdsourcing the ideas. Feel free to participate. You don't need to be committer or even PMC, or even you don't need to be tech savvy enough in terms of development experience to be a mentor of it. You can just be mentor on the side of requirements and specification of the idea. And we can also build some support in community and find somebody to actually do the development mentor for the students. So don't be shy. You can participate. That's the main idea. And of course, students on the other hand, so the only requirement for students is that they're actually active university students and they're above 18. There's no restriction of gender, location, whatever. And so it's really worldwide. If you're over 18 and you're a student, you can qualify. What projects can be submitted? Well, it can be a small feature. It can be the fundamentals of a larger feature. It can even be a unit test for a specific thing in the code. So it can be anything that you consider. But when submitting the idea, it's important to think of easy ways to measure and determine the success criteria of the project. So it's also important to be the idea to be simplified and easy to digest from the student, because if it is complicated, it might look a bit hard to achieve. So try to make it more appealing. Also, when submitting, try focusing on common domains in the project, because CloudStack can be very, very domain and technology specific. Sorry. So, for example, to do a simple task, you may require a particular amount of experience in KVM or in specific CentOS distribution. So try to avoid to be really down to some technology, but stick with much more common components, like, for example, logging or user interface or database interaction or web server, or like the common things that a project would use, so people can easily understand. So the ACS, the Apache Software Foundation and GSoC. So this year, the whole Apache organization submitted 28 projects. They were approved. These projects were across 20 plus Apache projects. So projects like Cassandra and Sharding Sphere, AP6 and Nemo. So all of these were participating in GSoC with one or more project ideas. CloudStack participation, we actually submitted 8 projects. We got 4 applications, and we were lucky enough that all our 4 applications were approved. So we could actually get the students to start working on them. So that was pretty cool. Here's a list of, here's the first the projects. It's supporting of support for multiple SSH keys for VM. So many users have wanted this through the years, and it appeared as a perfect example for a project for GSoC. Not too complex, not too simple, just good enough for graduates to pick it up and to do just do it with a little guidance. It was originally submitted by David Germani, and the student who applied was Bikram Biswas. A little bit about the project. There were a few components changed. First is some changes were applied to the database so that public keys can be stored and listed into a single string in VM details. Later on, it could be used in the VM as imported keys. There were also changes in the API to facilitate the feature. So two APIs were changed, basically. Deploy VM API has been restructured to actually take a list of keys now, as well as reset SSH keys API has been as well refactored to take a list of keys. Lastly, there were changes in the UI, which now allows you to, when you deploy a VM or when you reset the VM to actually pass this list of keys that you predefine. Here are some screenshots. Hope it's all visible. Good enough. On the left side, we see a list VM basically, where at the bottom you see two keys listed. On top, we see the reset SSH key pair UI, where you can actually select the keys, and on the bottom is the deploy VM, which now allows the user to have a list of keys to be passed to the VM. Next project is the synchronization of persistent networks with hosts. This one sounds a bit more fancy, but yeah. So what is a persistent network? It's simply a network that you can provision without having to deploy a VM in it, and it can stay implemented whether you're hosting any VMs or not in it. So up until now, we had the notion of these networks, but we didn't really create the infra on hosts that were sort of post-factum interactive. Like, if, for example, if a host is removed or rebooted, it didn't really sync the state. So there's potentially opens a case of inconsistency where you can simply add this host or reboot it and start adding VMs to it, and you can end up with in a case where you don't have the infra behind it to facilitate the network. So this feature basically aims to fix that. The original submitter was Pearl Silva, and a student named Sang Wu Bai has applied, and he got approved to work on this one. A little bit further about it, it's backend only feature, so no UI. Basically, the way it achieves it is by automatically updating port groups in VMware and VLANs in Zen and KVM when a host is added or rebooted, so that basically it matches the persistent network requirements. What it does also is a garbage collection when completed, when resources removed at a host or network, and it's also available in VMware, KVM, and Zen-like environments. Another long-awaited feature for CloudStack is Clone VM. This one made it through thanks to GSoC as well. So originally Suresh Anapati submitted this one, and the student Junchuan, I'm sorry about pronunciation, Junchuan Wu applied and got approved to work on it. So how this works basically is kind of self-explanatory. You clone a you want to clone VM, you clone it. So it's a straightforward action. But at the background, what it does is it creates snapshots from the volumes of VM, then creates templates from it and deploys a VM from the template from all the volumes. And then it checks at what networks the VM is attached and attaches the newly created VM to these networks. And yeah, of course, at the end, it cleans all temporary resources and it deploys the VM, basically. This one is available in UI and API, and I got a few screenshots for you. So looking at the top screenshot, there is a, so this is the VM instance. You can see that there's an option now to clone the VM. It's a simple button. When you click it, you are asked basically to put a name for the VM. You click OK, and you're basically done. You just need to wait for the background task to complete, and that's pretty much it. And the last one, this one actually was my idea. It's UI and UX improvements in the UI. So we all love the new UI, and we are all amazed by it, how it looks, how it feels. So I sat one day and created a list of things that that it would be kind of good to improve on it, yeah. Basically, that was my idea. David was helping on the technical part of it, like the JavaScript and the Vue specifics. And our student Apurv Gupta have applied and was accepted for the work and start working on it. So what is this feature? So it's just UI. It came down to me that some power users don't really use the mouse to navigate, and we are lacking some options to navigate with shortcuts in our UI. So it was kind of obvious that shortcuts need to be introduced. We can now have a list of shortcuts to navigate through the main sections of the UI. For example, if you press Shift plus I, you get to infra. If you press Shift plus C, you get to compute. And then we have another thing called combinations of keys. So if you press I plus H, you go to infrastructure hosts. And if you press C plus K, for example, you go to compute and Kubernetes. So when you log in, you have direct access to some infrastructure place or whatever. You don't need to scroll down or expand some section and then click on ports or whatever. You just can use the hotkey. Yeah, further, we added shortcuts to some common spaces on a page. Like, for example, if a list page has the refresh button, easily when pressing R, not Control R or Command R, just R, you just refresh the list in that page, not the whole page. So if you're just waiting for something, instead of picking the mouse, clicking refresh, you can just type R. Then the usual add whatever, like instance, add network, add host. If you press A, you do that. You get to the add form, delete as well. Yeah, what else? Yeah, the next thing was that we improved was the confirmation dialogues for Windows. For Windows, so at some of them you couldn't simply submit the form by pressing enter or escape the form. So I think we fixed all of that. Another annoying thing that I've noticed was that in the large form, when you submit it and there you've missed some required field or got something wrong, you stay at the end near the submit button, and the error is somewhere up, and you need to scroll up and figure out where it is. So we now move the focus back on that field, and you automatically can start typing on it or select something from the list and just get through the form easily, faster. So yeah, trying to make our lives easier. Here's a screenshot. So now you see that all the shortcuts are highlighted. You see the refresh, you see add instance, and I don't know if you see near, because I have my camera here. If you see when the admin drop down, you see show shortkeys with F. So if you press F, you're gonna see this all these tooltips displaying what key is for what link. So it's you can switch it on and off if you don't want it to be displayed. There are some, before you asked, before you say it, there are some browser plugins that basically do the same thing on top of a random whatever page. But we found that they are not static, and they produce dynamic shortcuts. So every time it's going to be different shortcut. And most importantly, they are browser specific, and some of them even don't really work with this UI. So that was a surprise for me as well, but it's a fact. Okay. Some ideas that didn't really go through this year. So I mentioned we had 4 projects, but only 4 got accepted. So we had first, one of these ideas is the OAuth2 plugin. Sorry for pronouncing. So this is basically a plugin that can enable CloudStack to do single sign-on authentication with some third-party providers like Google, Facebook, GitHub, and would enable also admins to manage those user accounts. So it's a really good idea, but didn't really pick up a student. Another one is which is quite handy and I really love, is the mapping of configuration parameters for APIs. So now if you need to find some setting to change, you either need to know the exact name of the setting, defined by string, or you need to start typing and start guessing, and or go through the documentation and have tons of pages read to understand what you need to change. So this idea is actually to create a mapping between a particular API and related settings to it. So it would actually create, when you start, if you want to change, if you want to know all the settings related to networks, for example, if you type create networks, it would display all the settings related to the API create network. So it's really handy because so easily you can understand what can be changed and what are the settings. It's just an idea. It didn't also pick up a lot of attention, but it's really good, I think. Another one is the Spice console for VM. So we have on KVM, we have for console, we have VNC and no VNC. So why not Spice? I mean, just another console to add. It also didn't. It's also a good idea, but it didn't really attract any students. And the last one that didn't get anything was to add the Virt B2b Support in CloudStack. So this is a really powerful tool that allows you to basically to migrate existing infrastructure into KVM. So basically, if you're running already, if you have a data center running in VMware and Zen outside of CloudStack and you want to migrate it, for example, with this tool, you can via CloudStack import or migrate all those VMs into KVM and at the same time manage them in CloudStack. So it's a really nice transition tool for migration and for potentially onboarding customers. Right, some results. This year we have about 1,200 students from 67 countries, about 200 company open source organizations, some small, some quite bigger, like the Apache Software Foundation. Over 2,100 mentors from 75 different countries, which is quite a huge number. The Apache CloudStack participation was 28 individual projects, as I mentioned, and 4 of them were CloudStack, which is good, I think. But yeah, have a thought beyond these numbers. I think there's 2 big winners here. Number one is obviously the students who participated. They got involved with real world problems and in a highly distributed open source organization, and actually managed to solve some of the problems. So yeah, imagine somebody in their early 20s and outside of just out from university having that experience. It's really, really cool. The other sort of winner here is the open source organization as well, because we always complain that we don't get new people. Unless we hire somebody, nobody's going to start working. And we actually now have students that are introduced to our community, that they took some participation. Some of them might be likely to come back, some not. That's fine. But yeah, it's good for us. There's a few more people knowing about CloudStack more on the planet. So it's a win-win situation.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you very much. If you can
running on time.
very fast the takeaways.
Okay. Yeah.
Out of time, and I have several fast questions for you.
Okay, sure. So yeah, some takeaways. When you're mentoring, be active. Try to get in touch and to stay in touch as much as you can with your student. Be there when needed. When submitting a project, you need to set a reachable goal. Try to be really down to the task, not really broad task. Yeah, the other thing is that our product is resource heavy, so some students may have issues with gathering all the required hardware. So keep that in mind. And the project, the ideas that you submit needs to be hypervisor agnostic, storage agnostic, and that sort of thing, so that they can run on simulator and not be heavy. Yeah, this slide, I think I can skip it, but it's a good mention that I believe GSoC is a lot better than having a normal internship, because usually in GSoC you get a project and you start working on a real problem, but in internship you usually get a manager. I mean, you're assigned to some team, and somebody sees you as a responsibility to find your work, and they are sometimes reluctant to give you a task because they're afraid you're inexperienced and this and that, and you end up like formatting code or writing documentation, and you spend your day around the coffee machine, getting used to that office life, So I believe as well, GSoC might be not that as involved in participation, and you're not there in the office, but you actually solve a problem and you get to know somebody. So I think it's far more better to participate that sort of internship than a regular one. Some credits, our students, Apuv, Jun Huan, Sao, Bikram, and the mentors involved, Pearl, David, Suresh, Nicholas, Rohit, and myself. And that was me.
And for questions, I will start with the first one. What level of coding experience the students need to have so that they can join the Google Summer of Code?
Well, it depends on the project, because for example, the project that I've submitted was related to UI. So obviously they didn't have to know Java or SQL or whatever. They just needed to know JavaScript. So they need to be in a let's say not really junior level, but somewhere between junior and medium level. and to be able to create a project in the code, in the language. I mean, and it really falls down to the complexity of the project that you submit. So as I mentioned, try to be simple and try to set a realistic goals for these kind of projects.
And what about the ideas which weren't executed? You mentioned several ideas on which they were not approved. Are they still available to grab, maybe during next Google Summer of Code? And are there any mentors who would like to mentor students on them?
Yeah, of course. Usually these ideas came from people. So these people that they submitted it, they are behind them, and probably in January or February, when we start to gather ideas for the new GSoC, we'll have them in mind as well. They will be in the pool. So yeah, they will be available next year, and hopefully there will be someone to pick them up.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks for the nice presentation, and we really hope more students will join the CloudStack as a project and will become also long-term committers and contributors to it. If you have any questions to Bobby, try to find him in our conference platform. He will be more than happy to chat with you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you.